Thanks for joining us for a special edition of WGXA News at 6. I'm Katie Thurber. Tonight, the candidates for mayor of Warner Robins will debate the issues that matter to you. Here are the candidates: current Warner Robins Mayor Randy Toms and his challengers, current councilman and former Mayor Chuck Shaheen, who served one term from 2010 to 2014, and current Public Works Director Joe Musselwhite. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The rules for tonight's debate are only one candidate may answer each question at one time. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question and 30 seconds for each rebuttal. And we're going to start with Mayor Toms and work this way. First question: what's the biggest problem facing the city right now, and what do you want to do about it as mayor to help?
Well, I think certainly one of the biggest problems we face is the rising crime rate, and it's a rise all over the nation. It's not just a issue that's, as I've been saying, indigenous to Warner Robins. It's an issue that's nationwide, and we have certainly started to make some solutions available. I think one of the problems we had was retention in our officers that had been there for a number of years because of a pay compression in the pay scale. And we recently made a pay scale adjustment. It was costly, and we're finding ways now to pay for that into the future. But also, we just put on 5 new police officers. We're in the process of hiring those. And so I hope that as we move forward, we'll be able to find a place where we can be fully staffed in the police department. And then we need to take a good look at how we're going to continue adding police officers as we determine the need. Right now, it's hard to tell exactly what the need is until you reach a point where you're fully staffed. And in the city of Warner Robins, we have been fully staffed in our police department very few times in the last number of years. And so my position is to get us to a point where we're fully staffed in the police department and do it. And we also, like I said, though, the pay scale adjustment was critical. And so we have to start saving money. We have to start building the economy and get to a point to where we can pay for that pay scale adjustment, which was vital to our position in certainly in our public safety departments.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman.
You know, I'm sitting here, Katie, listening to this, and you know, 4 years ago, we didn't talk about crime. That was not an issue. It was really about recreation, because in the 2012 SPLOST, we put $8–9 million into the SPLOST for recreation. I'm really concerned that now, 3 years later, crime has skyrocketed. And I think you've got to focus on your kids. Recreation is going to be a key the next 4 years. If we can get a kid's time, we can reduce crime. It's about leadership for the city of Warner Robins, and it's about, you know, moving your city forward. We discussed this 4 years ago about building our recreation program, and we've really not done a whole lot in recreation, but the next 4 years, working with the council, that's going to be the future. We always focus in on Robins Air Force Base. Warner Robins is unique in the fact that we are a military town. The second largest retiree moved to Warner Robins behind San Antonio. So we support those that serve in national defense, and for our airmen that are deployed, for their kids. But when we grew up, it was all about recreation. We didn't have this crime problem. I think we need to focus in on kids, quality of life issues, and having true leadership back at City Hall.
Great, thank you. Director.
Well, we got to bring leadership back. We need leadership in Warner Robins. Chuck mentioned in the last election, we didn't talk about crime. We talked about shortages in policemen. In 2013, a big part of the campaign, a big part of the questions were shortages in police staff. Today, the ratio between police officers and citizens in Warner Robins is unacceptable. We got far too many citizens for the number of officers that we have employed. I don't know what the number is today. A couple weeks ago in the news, it was reported that we had 24 vacancies. I was told last week 11, and 3 were coming out of school, so that would be 8. I don't know the real number, but we're short policemen from a full staff that we're budgeted for right now. Recreation is a big issue. We need to move forward with it. We need to build new facilities. In the meantime, we need to unlock the one we have on Watson Boulevard where kids can go enjoy themselves. We did grow up in recreation, and it was a big part of our lives, but we had somewhere to go play. We've got to get something for children to do again, get them off the street, and teach them how to be good citizens so they can grow up and be productive in our society.
Mayor Thomas, do you want to respond to anything that was said?
Well, I mean, I certainly agree that there's several things that we're working on in the city of Warner Robins. We have to address the crime situation in Warner Robins, and it's certainly not 3 times what it was when I took office, and one of the issues is recreation, and that is a big deal. And I think one of the things that we have put a lot of focus on in the last 2 SPLOST is recreation, and I think that's one of the issues. But I think that we're also making progress in putting police officers on the road, and I think that that's going to fix. And I think the fix is the pay scale adjustment. And I know for a fact that we were losing not just police officers, but firefighters and other employees because of the compression in our pay scale, and that's being addressed.
Councilman, anything else to say about this?
We can. I just think we're throwing money at the problems. I've worked with the policemen. I've been through Citizens Police Academy. I've ridden with police officers. The policemen need to be paid appropriately. We have a great benefits package for the city of Warner Robins. But violent crime has gone up 30% in our city. It is a fact in the last 3 years. But I don't want to think that our policemen are doing this for the money. They do it because they want to serve. And I think you need a mayor that rides with them on Friday night and Saturday night and Thursday mornings. A mayor that really cares about their family and making sure that they don't do a lot of overtime. How can we get them, if their shift is over with, let them go home and be with their family? That's what I'm hearing that the policemen want to do. Now, we're able to recruit the 78th Wing Commander. The security forces now, we're working at trying to bring in military that are well trained. And also, they changed the state policy. Because of the city of Warner Robins, the state is changing the way they accept police officer standard and training for the United States Air Force, which was a great thing.
Thank you. Anything else you want to say?
I think we covered it all. I mean, we need more officers on the street. Wherever they come from, however we hire them, we're short of our authorized strength by budget, and even if we're at full strength, we probably don't have enough. So we need to make some changes in that area, and I will work hard to make that happen.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. You all talked about crime, and we're moving on to our next question. In 2016, the city had 6 homicides, 31 reported rapes, and 143 robberies. What do you plan to do as mayor to bring down the crime rates? If you want to address that again, Mayor Thomas.
Well, I mean, I think it's a problem that's a national problem. The crime rate is going up all over the nation, and in Warner Robins, I think we're addressing the issue very well. I think that we are not satisfied with crime at all, much less rising crime. I think that the police officers do a great job. We need to make sure that we get fully staffed, and I think that whether you like it or not, they were leaving because of the pay compression, where they were training people to come on the police department and they were making 20, 25 cents more an hour. That was a problem. That was a problem that we heard over and over, and we heard it most of the time as the police officers were walking out the door. And so we had to address that issue, and we did address that issue, and it was a very contentious issue because it was an expensive fix. But if we didn't, the cost to not fixing it was going to be even more astronomical as time went on. And so we had to make sure that we have experienced police officers on the road doing the job that they do. I have worked around police officers in public safety and fire service for 30 years, and I know what they go through. I've been on scenes with them, and I've seen them work, and no one has more respect for our law enforcement community than somebody that has worked side by side with them. I wouldn't want to do what they do. Of course, they wouldn't want to do what I did for 27 years either, and that was always the conversation we had back and forth.
Definitely. Councilman?
Yeah, it's just not acceptable because, homicides, when you have Robins Air Force Base, and when the #1 issue right now is crime control, it is about leadership in the mayor's office, and you have got to make sure we're on the forefront of this. I just want to say publicly, do not come to Warner Robins and commit a crime, because if you do, we will find out who you are and we will solve that crime. That's what you need, that kind of leadership. Saying that, well, you know, it's not a their problem. It's our problem. We can't keep pointing the fingers at the nation and saying this is what's going on in the nation. We were below the nation average 3 years ago. We're above it now. So let's solve this problem. I've been there 8 years. If you go back to the HR department, I want to look at the exit interviews and how many firemen and policemen, public works, utilities director left because they weren't getting paid enough money. I'd like to just do open records and find out how many people have left. I don't remember seeing that many. But moving forward, we have a great benefits plan. Anything that our police department, from a Bearcat, any vehicles, more manpower. We built a new law enforcement center, and that was a vision from Mayor Walker, but it was carried out under the administration in 2010, 2013 when I was the mayor. So we were able to give them, you know, whatever our policemen need, we're standing side by side with them.
Mr. Musselwhite.
Well, the police need support. You know, the chief needs support, the major, the people on patrol, the detective, everybody needs support. You know, they're in life-threatening situations every day, and they need the leadership support. I got two other things to add. One thing is, recently in the news, the police chief was quoted as saying that his department had become reactionary because they don't have enough help. So back in April, I go to the State of the Base meeting, the State of the Base address over at the Museum of Aviation, and when it come down to question and answer time, the question was asked of the panel, how can the city help the base? And the commander's answer was, get the crime rate under control. We've got to get the crime rate under control. It's not acceptable. I know it's a national problem, it's a state problem. I'm worried about the problem in Warner Robins, Georgia. We got to get adequate numbers of policemen on the street, adequate detectives, and fight this problem and make Warner Robins a safer place.
Mayor Toms, do you have a response to any of this?
Well, only that it is a situation where we need more police officers. Everybody will admit to that. But it's about funding. How do you fund more police officers? Well, obviously, you can't fund 25 police officers. That was figured out over the last couple of days. When you think you can take $1 million and hire 25 police officers at $40,000 a year, you can't do that. And so there has to be solutions. There are solutions in place. We cannot use SPLOST money to go towards paying police officers, but we can use SPLOST money to make sure that we don't have to use general fund money to fund capital projects. And so I think that the fact that I have been a responsible leader, and I am a good leader and have been a good leader and have been in touch with my police chief on a consistent basis, and we are constantly trying to figure out ways to be better as a public safety department and departments within the city of Warner Robins.
Councilman.
Well, the budget's there. We just don't have the policemen. So let's go to where we can do to recruit policemen. Let's go to the HR department. Let's let the HR, Human Resource Department, work with your police chief and your recruiting officers. Let's go to these colleges. Let's go to the 78th Wing Commander Security Forces at Robins Air Force Base. So if the problem is that we have it in the budget, we even allowed 5 more in the budget, we can't get those manned. So let's focus in on recruitment. Warner Robins is an international city, so let's look at diversifying our police department. Maybe we need to start going to Fort Valley State that has a criminal justice background, the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech. Let's go to right here at Mercer in Macon, Macon State. Let's focus in on recruiting excellent officers so that we can be fully manned.
Mr. Musselwhite.
No, you're correct. You can't hire 25 officers with $1 million and pay them every year. I agree with that. I never said you could. I just said I could hire 25 officers with $1 million, and I can't. We didn't discuss the future. Also, the same night I made that statement, I said there's 52 open positions in Warner Robins, and the ones that have been open for over a year or so, evidently we don't need them. I'll move that money. If you move 52 open positions now to hire policemen, you will have a bunch of policemen. There's a lot of job openings in Warner Robins, Georgia. We used to didn't have job openings. There'd be some 3 or 4 for police. We're not even hiring up to the strength that is already budgeted. We're not talking about future money. This money, the benefit package, everything is in place. We just can't hire the officers. Something's wrong with that, and I'm going to work to solve that problem.
Thank you. And our last question tonight, how do you plan to work with surrounding communities to improve the quality of life for residents in Warner Robins? Mayor Thomas.
Well, I think that there is a lot of cooperation between the surrounding communities. And I think the biggest way that you can do is you can meet together, and certainly if you're doing it good, you can always do it better. And so I think that what I will work towards and what I have done is I have a very good relationship with all the surrounding communities. And I want to find out what they're doing that would work in the city of Warner Robins, and find out how developers in different areas are developing quality of life situations and venues for their communities, and how does it best come into play for the city of Warner Robins. And so I think that there's a lot of cooperation and collaboration that can take place between communities, and I think always gleaning ideas from what other communities are doing that works for them. I think that that's a good thing. So I think you got to have the lines of communication open. I think you got to have the lines of communication open between what people want. And I think one of the big things that you have to talk to nowadays is the millennials. What do they want? They're the ones that they have a desire for more active venues and parks and recreation facilities, and I think you have to stay in touch with those people. In fact, I have two of them that are my son and daughter and their spouses, and so I stay connected with them to find out what they want, and I think that's a big way to move forward.
Councilman.
Yeah, 2010, Mayor Rickert called me and said, let's all the mayors get together. So we would have 7 mayors go to luncheon 2 or 3 or 4 times a year to collaborate together. We would bring the 78th Wing Commander in and meet with us so that he could be able to explain what is going on with the needs at Robins Air Force Base. So I'd like to build these relationships before there's a crisis. We really have, all the communities really revolve around Robins Air Force Base. So I wanted the mayors to come in, I would host them, they would be hosted separately. Even this Thursday, we have a community luncheon where the mayors get together and our county chairman and our municipal court judge, we get together, we meet. That is what makes Warner Robins so unique, is that we really love each other, we care about each other, we work with our school board, our technical college, so that when we need to pick up the phone and call each other, we already know each other and have relationships. But there's not a single meeting that I've ever been to the last 40 years at Warner Robins, including the Chamber of Commerce, that somebody at Robins Air Force Base isn't present, that we serve our airmen and national defense. And that includes Macon, Warner Robins, Byron, Centerville, Perry, all these local areas, and that's what I like about our area.
Mr. Musselwhite.
Yeah, we all need to work together. Communication is a big issue. It's a big issue in this election process. You know, we need to open the lines of communication between the City Hall and the citizens, the employees, everywhere, the county, the school board. I mean, they have these meetings, which I'm in full favor of them. I think it's a great idea, but you've got to go. You can't send a text that you're not going to the meeting because your coworker's going and you don't want to be around him. We've got to get along. We've got to unify in Warner Robins. We've got to all start getting along for the betterment of the community. And we need to talk regularly. We need to talk to our congressmen, our senators. Yeah. That's the stability of Robins Air Force Base. They're the ones that will get the new missions at Robins Air Force Base. The commanders at the base, the public finds out what's coming about the same time they do. It's these guys in Washington that make the difference. We need to communicate with everyone. We even need better communication with the press. We need to let the people know what's going on in the community and in the county. And there's some good things going on, and we need to let them know the good along with the bad. I'm just a big believer in we've got to all get together and agree to disagree if that's necessary and move forward. I look forward to it.
We won't be sad if you want to talk to us more. We won't be sad at all. Mayor Thomas, do you have a response to any
Well,
of this?
just that I like what they're saying, and the good thing about it is I'm doing all those things. I'm in very good contact with the installation commander, the 78th Air Base Wing Commander, the complex commander. I'm in touch with Congressman Scott and Senator Perdue. I'm in touch with the state legislatures. I mean, every time there's a meeting, if there's any way possible, I'm there. And I'm very connected with our local people in the other cities. I'm very connected with Robins Air Force Base, and I'm very connected on a state and a national level, and I'm proud of that work.
Councilman.
Yeah, the key between the community in your mayor's office and Robins Air Force Base really is the conduit is the 21st Century Partnership. We've not heard much from them. We've asked them to come to council meeting. I used to work very close with the 21st Century Partnership. We used to meet at the Museum of Aviation, which is the second largest Air Force museum in the country. The 21st Century Partnership has got to be you really work cohesively with your leaders in the city of Warner Robins to make sure we're prepared for BRAC.
And Mr. Musselwhite.
Yeah, we need to work with the 21st Century Partnership. We need to talk to them and get them to reach out to Washington to some of these connections. We got the longest runway in the southeast at Robins Air Force Base. And like I said a while ago, these decisions will be made in Washington. We need to get cargo flying in here. A couple of years ago, I'm pretty well convinced we had a shot at getting FedEx, and that slipped away. We've got to get the community on the right track and do everything we can to make it more stable.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. We do have time for some social questions. This is actually streaming live on Facebook, and we've gotten some responses, some questions from people there. So Valinda Wilson asks, how about another LEC? Surely we're a big enough city that we could use more. Mayor Thomas.
Well, I think we have precincts in different locations, and I think we can, as we move forward into the different areas in our community, I think we can make better use of our precincts. But we have a precinct out on Lake Joy Road in the fire station out on Lake Joy, and we have the ability to put a precinct out on 96. That was built into the station when we built that station. So I think that we have, I don't know that we have the need for a whole new LEC, but we certainly have precincts that we are using some now, and we can certainly make better use of them in the future.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think we need to put precincts where crime is. For example, we want to build a gym at Dolores Tolliver, which was the old Sewell Circle Park. We need to put a precinct and have police presence in these areas. You know, where speeders are, where your high crime is, let's put police precincts there. We have a police precinct at the hospital on North Houston Road, on Lake Joy Road. That's the future, is to really be a presence among these high crime areas.
Yeah, the city even owns houses around town that could be offered for officers to live in, sell them to them. Give them a low interest loan, sell it to them. You know, whatever would be legal to do, and get them in the communities that way. You know, and like has already been said, we do have precincts in our fire stations and the hospital satellite deals and things of that nature, and we need more, but we've got to grow into that. Right now, we've got to focus our dollars on hiring more policemen and staffing what we got available to be staffed now.
Thank you. We've talked about a lot of different issues going on in Warner Robins and what you hope to do. Final thoughts on what you would plan to do if you become mayor and if you have another term.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and this is something that I think that is key, and it's already been mentioned by all of us, and that is that we have to work on crime. We have to get that under control. We have to make sure we're fully staffed, and I think we're well on the way to getting to a point where we're fully staffed in our police department, and then we can evaluate how many police officers do we need beyond that, and how are we going to fund that. But I think, again, one of the big things that we have looking into the future is we have an incredible opportunity to make a difference in parks and recreations. We have $20 million in the previous SPLOST and in this SPLOST set aside to make a real difference and to make a real impact, not just in the youth of our community, but the youth that come into our community from out of town to play tournament ball, but also in our economy, especially on the north side of town. And I think that the thing that goes overlooked is how important the SPLOST dollars are as we move into the future. And in saying that, I will say this, it is my understanding, and they may be able to refute me on this, but of the three sitting here, I'm the only person of these three that actually voted yes in the SPLOST referendum. And I think that's critical. I think that shows responsible leadership that I put together with my department directors a SPLOST Fund project. I encouraged the voters to get out and vote for it, and then I personally went out and voted for it myself.
Well, I can tell you who does not want me to be the mayor, and that's criminals. I've got an iron fist, and we will not tolerate crime in our city. And I know the police officers, I have been there at 10:30 at night with them and 2 in the morning because they know their leader, their mayor, cares about the police officers. They need to know that there is stability in the mayor's office. But what makes me uniquely qualified, if you look back at the history of Warner Robins, Homer J. Walker, Clifford Holmes, John Haverilla, Henrietta McIntyre, Chuck Shaheen, the only 5 council people that have ever been a mayor. What I have learned is the communication is a key. You cannot sit here individually and think you're going to lead your city. You have to get the council's buy-in. It has to be a team effort. We want to bring an idea to council, let the council make it a better idea. Your council needs to be a part of appropriating the funds. Crime is important, but what I have learned is that your institution has got to be financially sound so that you can provide resources for public safety. When your institution is financially sound, then we can build on that. I want to bring the council in budget process instead of knowing 2 weeks prior to passing a budget. They have got to feel a part of the team. We work as the citizens, we work for the stakeholders, and each person is elected, and it has to be a team to work together to move your city forward.
Mr. Musselwhite.
Yeah, everybody knows by this point how I feel about crime. I'm going to stop crime in Warner Robins. I'm going to answer to Mr. Toms about what he said about not voting for the SPLOST.
I wouldn't even answer.
I did not vote.
I wouldn't waste it.
I did not vote in the last SPLOST election. I went and talked to Chairman Stonecker, Houston County Commission. I told him, I've been one of the biggest supporters ever of the SPLOST. I've stood on podiums and asked people to vote for it. I am not a hypocrite. I told him, I said, the city of Warner Robins has misused SPLOST dollars. From this location, they moved it to a bunch of numbers. You can't move it. It's special purpose local option sales tax. So I can't go vote against the SPLOST. I actually encourage people to vote for it. I didn't vote because I'm not a hypocritical person, and I don't agree with it, the money being misused. The law says you can't do it. They did it. Is it legal or not? You know, you tell me. That's the reason I didn't vote for SPLOST. Other than that, I support the SPLOST. I have administered many millions of dollars, $20 million in SPLOST projects over the years. I never misused any SPLOST money. Now, what they do downtown wasn't me. I was at the Public Works Department with a bunch of numbers to go by. But no, I won't vote for anything that I don't think is being done properly. Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
We appreciate it. We also have some other social comments to take a look at. Jeff Cox is showing us what all of you were saying watching at home. Jeff.
Well, Katie, as you mentioned earlier, we have been streaming this debate live on our Facebook page at WGXA.tv, and some of the feedback very interesting. A lot of it centering on the crime that is being discussed in Warner Robins. In fact, looking at some of the comments being shared, Connie Nixon brings up the fact that she feels police, EMS, and fire department need raises. They're out there putting their lives on the line, and so they are supporting first responders in Warner Robins. We're also seeing folks like David Reed talking about how we need to get our city to a point where if something would happen to the base, the city would still succeed. And a lot of focus put on the base there in Warner Robins this evening. And a final comment, what about the north side of town? All the focus seems to be on the newer areas. Are we left behind? We are the soul of the town in the north. So a lot of folks watching the debate online tonight on Facebook. You can check that out at WGXA.tv. Katie, back to you.
And a lot of things that we talked about during the course of the debate as well kind of answered those comments. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And all of you, remember, you can vote November 7th, but actually you can vote in this race now. In Warner Robins, early voting is going on every weekday from 8 to 5 at City Hall. That goes until November 3rd, and on Election Day, you can vote at different locations around the city. That goes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'll see all of you back here on WGXA News at 11. ABC World News is next.